Good evening, everyone. It is 6:15. I call to order the City of Glenwood Springs City Council meeting. It is April 2nd, 2026. This is our first meeting for April. And with that, I will take a roll call. Ryan, please.
Mayor Day,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski, Councilor Townsley, Councilor Schmall, Councilor Weimer, Councilor Schachter, Councilor Smith. We have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Moving into changes for the agenda, and I was informed that we are pulling item 10 and item 13 because they're incomplete at this point. We don't have to move them to a separate meeting because they are not noticed items. So we will just pull item 10 and item 13 tonight. Conflicts of interest from councilors for any of the agenda items. We'll see none. We'll move on. We'll go into citizens appearing before council for items not on the agenda. And whoever's here, please come forward, state your name and whether you live in city limits or not.
Hello, my name's Lori Chase. I live on Cowden Drive, and I'm here to single-handedly represent, as a NIMBY in the Cowden Overland Drive neighborhood. I would like to ask, please, could you have all the cement blankets, all the miscellaneous trash that is around that beautiful habitat development that's eventually going to be finished, but I sure would like all of their trash to be picked up that's outside of their construction fence area. That is including all those cement, bright orange cement blankets. It's just not great. And there's no reason why they should be there. So if you guys could please push somebody into getting rid of those, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori, for your comment. I'm sure that's something city management can handle. We do that a lot. We do point out to construction sites that we do need you to clean up your stuff, especially when the wind carries it miles away. Anybody else here from the public? We'll see none. I'll close the public portion for the items not on the agenda, and we'll go into council announcements. And we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
I just wanted to let the community know that there will be a springtime river cleanup occurring Saturday, April 25th, 8 a.m. till about noon. There'll be coffee and donuts, supplies provided, and just an opportunity to it's a minimal runoff season, but there is going to be some runoff. There probably is going to be some debris that gathered over the winter, and it's a chance for us to clean it up and get ready for spring.
All right, thank you. Councilor Smith, please.
Thank you. Since this council met last, the Garfield Clean Energy Board met, a board to which we have representation. The three primary topics came up. One of them was kind of fun. The staff discovered a $100,000 discrepancy or update to the budget, that there was $1,000 more by year beginning than was first thought. So there was a move to reallocate that money primarily to residential energy efficiency and upgrade programs. So it was kind of a positive bit of news fiscally. I also had a really diverse update on the activities of GCE and its sister organization, Clean Energy Economy for the Region CLEAR, on transportation topics, many of which implicate our own transportation staff and our own engineering and public works staff. So there's some nice partnerships going on there. Coming up in May is going to be, Garfield Clean Energy is a collection of municipals and the county as members to work on clean energy projects. Coming up in May, they'll be holding a work session with facility managers from each of the member organizations. So they're putting that detail together here, and I'll help get the word out to Ethan about that. There also will be a locally produced electricity workshop on April 23rd. Our invitations are going to go out to planning staff and public works staff, and I'll, help be sure that gets to the right place. On my own, I contacted a couple of teachers at the high school to see if they could help recruit youth representatives to our boards and commissions that don't yet have that representation. They were pretty enthused about trying it. They're going to take it to some of their internal student service clubs and to some other teachers and see if we can get some responses there. The Transportation Commission met on March 3rd and published a pretty strong recommendation for the city to get on with toward implementing paid parking policies for downtown. Subsequent to that, on April 7th, the Downtown Development Authority met and talked about this topic at the instigation of the city manager. During that meeting, we got the two commissions together. So next Tuesday, April, whatever that turns out to be, 8th, whatever next Tuesday is, the two commissions will have some representations meeting together to talk about downtown parking management. Jillian's got some of her board members organized. The Transportation Commission has been very welcoming about it. So I think that among them, they have very diverse points of view within and between the two commissions. So they should be bringing us back a pretty lively package of updated ideas. The Colorado Communities for Climate Action Legislative Committee met on March 25th to provide some updates on legislation that has some effect here, legislation pending in the state legislature, the Colorado General Assembly. One of them, including the overall budget struggles that the state has, and impact that that's having, among other things, on the Bustang service, the Colorado Department of Transportation's cross-state bus service that brings, I think, 15 scheduled stops in Glenwood Springs each day. So we'll be following that more closely. The same organization, CC4CA, is going to have one of its regular board meetings, normally done by Zoom, in person, April 17th in Carbondale, 9 o'clock. Anybody here, certainly anybody from council will be welcome to attend. Once they get the particulars pinned down, I'll be sure to get those circulated through the city manager in case you want to see what that organization is up to. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you, Councillor Smith. Any other announcements? No, we'll see none. Thank you. Item 6 tonight is the consent agenda, and I'm entertaining a motion. Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky.
I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Looking for a second. Councillor Townsley.
Second it.
And a second. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
Well, let's get it approved. Let's see. Got to get through the buttons. Councillor Townsley, do you have anything to say?
Yeah.
Okay, please.
Just want to let you know, I did recommend Ashley Moffett for reappointment to the Parks and Rec Committee. She's 6 years on Rivers Commission and now 3 years on us. And she's willing to go another 3 years. She's a good, valuable member of that, well-spoken. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? See none. With that, I will call for the question.
It's unanimous. It passes.
Thank you, Ryan. And with that, we will go into our first proclamation of the evening, and this is the Wildfire Awareness Proclamation. And I'm not quite sure who is here to receive this one. Is it Robin? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Hey, Rob. Hey, good. How are you? Good. Okay, let's see. A proclamation for Wildfire Preparedness Month, May 2026. Whereas the size and destructive nature of Colorado wildfires have continued to grow significantly since 2002. For the top 5 largest wildfires have occurred in the last 6 years. And whereas the most destructive fire in state in terms of homes lost occurred less than 4.5 years ago, almost doubling the amount of homes lost than any previous record. And whereas warmer temperatures, drought, and continued development in the wildland-urban interface have made wildfire mitigation a priority for Glenwood Springs Fire Department. And whereas Wildfire Preparedness Month is focused on encouraging residents to learn about wildfire safety and take steps to reduce wildfire risk and in or around their homes. Now, therefore, I, Marco Dame, Mayor of the City of Glenwood Springs, do hereby proclaim May Wildfire Preparedness Month in the year of 2026. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, to be affixed the 2nd day of April in the year 2026. Wildfire Preparedness Month in May.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin, for being here. This is for you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Awesome. You have anything to say? You want to say anything about wildfire preparedness while you're here?
Just for the members of the public, I did put out a public service announcement this week. We've been enjoying the spring rain and the spring green up right now, but we know that we've been living in a drought. This year, we know that wildfire is going to be a high priority. We're asking for everybody's help. Get signed up for the emergency alerts. Be ready, set, go. And as this proclamation says, get your homes ready because we can survive wildfires. It's something that we live with and we can continue to live with, and it's just part of our daily lives.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. By the way, Robin Pitt is our fire marshal
Yeah.
for the City of Glenwood
Thank
Springs. So thank you for being here. Awesome. Thank you. And our second proclamation is for Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month, April 2026. And please, ladies,
Thank you.
come forward. Suzanne, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Excellent. And you are
Karen?
Karen, that's right.
Karen Lang.
You're small.
Sorry.
Yes, you are. Okay.
He's on vacation.
I know, he's on spring break. Good for him. Okay, excellent. The proclamation for Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month, April 2026. Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic, progressive neurological disease and is the second most common neurodegenerative disease in the United States, affecting almost 1,100,000 people in the United States, with one person being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease every 9 minutes. The prevalence of Parkinson's disease is expected to rise to 1.2 million individuals by 2030. Whereas Parkinson's disease and related health issues are the 14th leading cause of death in the United States, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Whereas it is estimated that the total national economic burden of Parkinson's is approximately 52 billion each year. This includes the direct medical costs such as treatment, Social Security payment, and lost income of 25.4 billion and indirect costs to patients and family members of 26.5 billion per year in the United States. Whereas research suggests the cause of Parkinson's disease is a combination of generic and environmental factors, but the exact cause and progression of the disease is still unknown. Whereas there is no objective test or biomarker for Parkinson's disease, and there is no cure nor medication to slow it or halt the progression of the disease. Whereas the symptoms of Parkinson's disease vary from person to person and include tremors, slowness of movement and rigidity, difficulty with balance, swallowing, chewing, and speaking, cognitive impairment and dementia, mood disorders such as depression and anxiety, skin problems, and sleep difficulties. Whereas researchers, caregivers, and medical professionals are working to improve the quality of life of persons living with Parkinson's disease and their families through the research, education, and community support services necessary in finding more effective treatments and to provide access to quality care to those living with the disease today. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, to be affixed by the 2nd day of April in the year 2026.
Wow.
That's
Thank
a
you
lot.
So much.
That's a
was
lot.
Thank you.
All right, and you're gonna
Thank
get
you.
this, and I know you
So-
have something to say,
I
right?
do. I
Okay.
just will keep you just a second.
Please do.
But thank you all. And you probably need a drink after
I
that.
do.
Just a drink of water though. I think this is not a news flash, but in the Roaring Fork Valley, we have over 75 to maybe even over 90 people here in the valley that are affected by Parkinson's. But the good news is we have some great resources. We have Community Center has several different classes for Parkinson's folks. On Monday, we have a Parkinson's exercise class, then we do neuro ping pong on Thursdays. You can check on the city website for those things. Also, then Parkinson's of the Rockies, which is headquartered out of Denver, but does have resources here in Glenwood. Has group meetings for caregivers and people affected by Parkinson's. Great support. Yeah, we do. We have great support. We can't think of anything else. I do want to put a plug in though for September 12th this year. That's going to be our walk again, 4th year. So that's good.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's our biggest fundraiser,
Yeah.
the Vitality Walk.
Thank-
So thank you.
Thank you so
much.
much. Thank you too for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks
thank you
for raising awareness and help us raise awareness. Parkinson's disease.
Can I say one more word?
Yeah.
Parkinson's sucks.
There you go.
Yeah.
2 words. 2 words.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you very much, all of you, for being here tonight. Helping us, helping us with the 2 proclamations. We are moving into our actions and or presentations of the evening. If I do this right, I did. Item 9 on the agenda is the Charter Commission update, and I know Charlie's here, Charlie Willman and John Banks. So
Thanks.
please.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity to appear before council. Talked to you all in a work session, I guess a few months ago. As you may recall, former Mayor Wusso asked the council to form a committee to look at the charter to determine what changes might be recommended to the charter, which hadn't really been significantly reviewed since the early 60s. The number of people were asked to volunteer. There was myself and 2 other former council members on that. Mr. Banks has been involved with the city in a number of respects, was there. Ashley Moffett and some other citizens, Chad Lee, some other people were actively engaged. We met over the course of 4 months in the spring of 2025 last year. And then we came, I think, and talked to you all in October of last year. The result of that, and you all have the report in front of you, the result of that was a number of recommendations. A lot of that was red line. And what we did is we took each section of the charter from Article 1 through Article 13, as I remember correctly, or 14, whatever it is. And we looked at each section individually. We talked about it. We talked about the wording, and we came up with a consensus, which ended up in the report that we sent to you that talked about what we believed to be the changes that needed to be made to the charter to modernize it and to make it internally consistent. The other thing is Ryan Muse from the city staff and Carl from your city attorney's office and Steve Boyd as well gave us some input from the staff. And with that, they said, these are the things that we'd like to see you look at as you look at the charter. One of those that Ryan talked about it because it's in his office, and that is the issue of taking things out to bid. I think, and I forgot the amount, I don't have it in front of me, but the amount is fairly small. And so we recommended that be increased considerably. And we talked about whether it should be professional services as well as actual, building things, materials, that kind of construction type of contract. So those are all the recommendations we made on those. We think that by doing that, we will bring the charter into the 21st century, not the 20th century or mid 20th century. And it wasn't the framers, the people who did the original charter commission did do a good job. It was an outstanding document. It's been amended several times throughout the course of since it was originally adopted in the mid 60s. And so those are the things we presented to you. The 2 questions, I sent a number of questions to Carl. I don't know if he's ever presented those answers to you guys or not, but I think it's something to look at. They're just things that we didn't know. And even though years ago I was a city attorney, I don't remember any of that stuff anymore. So I had to give it to Carl because I didn't remember that. So a couple of things that we did think that should be talked about at a more significant level, get more citizen input rather than the group of 10 or 12 of us. And that was the issue of, do we have an elected mayor? And the other issue was, should we change the elections from the spring to November? We had, as a former person that worked with me in mock trial used to say, we had vigorous fellowship about those issues. And we did not reach a consensus among the committee on what they should be. What we did reach was an idea that we thought that we should have, we were happy to sponsor this and to facilitate this with city staff, and that is to have a public input session, whether it would be both issues or just one issue, but we'd have a public, have a publicly announced meeting, have people come in and give their views on that, try to take that and maybe make a further recommendation on that. That was a while ago. I think I could probably get most of that committee back together to talk about that if you want to proceed that way. Those were the two issues, that the elected mayor and the moving the elections, that really, I think, precipitated the original ask to look at the charter and go through that. So with that, and I probably violated my 3 minutes, and I told Carl, no, I'm just kidding. No, but with that, John, you want to add anything? We can finish. Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all.
Well, thank you, John Banks here. I was on the committee and I was struck by a couple of things as we were working. We had some rather mechanical fixes to do in the charter, which I think there was generally consensus on. And then there were a number of issues where you could get people one way or the other, and there clearly wasn't a direction to go. I don't know that you want to take a lot of brain damage here. You may want to adopt no changes, and that would be fine. You may want to adopt the boilerplate changes, and that would be fine. Beyond that, you may just want to be done with this and call it good, and I think that would be just fine. So, I would maybe sort of say, where there wasn't a strong consensus on the committee one way or the other, I don't know that you're going to find a strong consensus in the public one way or the other. So maybe make a decision tonight and be done with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to both of you for being here.
Yeah.
Presenting this.
Any questions you have for?
Yeah, let's see if we have, bring it back to council. We'll see if we have any questions to Charlie at this point. Councilor Smith, start with you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, maybe for the commission members, maybe for staff. One is basically, why are we talking about it tonight? Actually in the reports that the commission presented, if I'm remembering the phrasing right, it was a suggestion that, as you just paraphrased, Charlie, that there be public hearings or public fora on actually 3 topics: the state of the election, the choosing of a mayor, and the possibility of at-large elections for all city council members, were the 3 things listed. Is this the public hearing tonight? Or are we still talking about the idea of holding such a thing?
If I remember correctly, this was really bringing it back so you guys could take some action if you wanted to do any of those things. Because as you'll recall, we had a discussion at a work session where you couldn't give any specific direction. So it's really a question of if the council wants to move forward on any of these ideas or some of them, or hold more public input. That's what you guys are talking about tonight.
And that could include moving forward on having these public fora. Okay. Also, pretty sure I'm correct on this, but I just want to be clear for all the discussion. Taking up these changes involves going to a ballot, correct? This cannot be done unilaterally by city council.
Absolutely. Any changes to the charter have to be done by election.
I have some other thoughts, but I think we'll wait till hear if others have questions.
Thank you. Councilor Townsley, please.
I guess my question when I read through that would be moving the election from April to November. I mean, I don't know a lot about elections, but it seems to me like we get more people, especially when I look at the election probably coming up. It's going to be pretty contentious, a lot of news cycles. Is that a good time, or are we better off? Is there some reason why we would want to move the vote to November?
I think the things that we talked about, the pros and cons, is I'll try to got to put my memory in there. But I think the pros and cons were the more people might turn up at a regular election than would turn up at a spring election. The numbers for spring elections, and Ryan can tell you, I don't remember them, are fairly small. We're talking maybe 10% of the people in each of the wards votes, and overall and the at-large positions, the numbers of people that vote at the spring election isn't that significant. That was one thing, and maybe we would get more interest. I think the flip side of that is the city ballot questions, or those kind of questions, if we're on a November ballot, particularly on a general election November ballot, is the last thing, and they're on page 15 of the ballot. I think that would, I'm embellishing by the page 15, but that was the downside, because it's at the bottom of that. But it might get more citizens to participate. It might get more interest in the issues, and get more people to vote. And the issue of not having as many people vote, particularly if you're gonna have charter amendments at a municipal election, is you might get the people who are interested in that particular amendment out to vote, but people who say, oh, I don't really care, or it doesn't make any difference, or I don't really want it, but no, they're not gonna put that in anyway, they're not gonna show up. I think those are the things we talked about, David. So I think that kind of encompasses our general discussion. That's why we really didn't have a recommendation on that, because those pros and cons. I think that's something the public may have input on that would give us more insight into that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Council Schachter.
Things, one for Charlie or John. Did I understand you correctly? The four main items, well, one is cleanup. There are really only three other major changes at the above the bar. Did I hear you correctly? There was not a strong consensus or recommendation from the commission? These are just things that ought to be considered, or was there a direction and strong consensus?
I think my view of what the consensus was maybe a little bit different than John had, but my view is the red line changes are things that make it internally consistent.
I'm not talking, I'm sorry, John, I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the three highlighted items above that. The election period, elected mayor, and at large, those three things. Was there a strong recommendation?
No, there was
me?
not. No, thank you.
Okay.
I didn't understand your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the other question would be for Carl, just clarification. The technical updates, even though they are technical and that were red and blue, those still would be, we would require an election should we adopt.
Yeah, every change to the charter requires an election.
So then related to that, based, I don't know if you've reviewed it all yet or not, are we as a city, in any kind of jeopardy without those technical updates?
I don't think we're in any kind of jeopardy necessarily. I mean, there's always, I mean, anytime you draft a document, you can always go back 50 years later and go, I should have done that. Right. Which is essentially where we're at with this document. Some of that cleanup would be great in places like procurement, just because the world operates a little bit differently now than it did in 1965. But we've operated with it the way it is so far. We probably can be fine moving forward. It just,
And with procurement specifically, the item 13.9 or whatever it was, that can't be changed by ordinance. That has to be changed.
That has to be
charter.
changed by an election. And I do think one of the things you might want to consider on some of those technical changes is to just bite them off a little bit at a time. Because one of the things that is tough is that if you put in a ballot and it's changes to 7 different sections and you're only changing a word here or there, I think there's a bit of fatigue around that sometimes for, people just not wanting to read through it and figure out what's going on. And, I know my inclination is to vote no. If it's going to require, I'm not sure where the city's going with that or why. So we may want to bite them off in small chunks over a couple of upcoming elections on some of just these technical cleanups. Say procurement amount might be a good one that we could throw on the ballot next spring.
Thank you.
And something I think the commission probably, if you're gonna make any change in just the general body of it, leave out those big issues. Procurement probably is the one that we all identified. Ryan was real clear that it'd just be a whole lot easier for the city, a lot less costly for the city, and you might get more bids and things like that if you increase that number. And you always can determine as a council, you're gonna put something else out to bid. You don't have to, just because it's under that, you don't have to put it underneath that. Staff would come to you and make that decision. So we would highly recommend at least make that change on the procurement.
Thank you, Council Smith.
Thank you. Kind of a corollary to Councilor Townsley's question about the possibility, what are the highlighted topics of changing the date of municipal elections.
I'm sorry, say again.
Councilor Townsley highlighted one of your highlighted topics, changing the date of municipal elections.
Yeah,
I've got a corollary question.
yeah.
The timing of an election to consider changes to the charter. When we had a work session with this group a few months ago, there was some kind of a sense of anxiety. Let's get on with this so that we can finish in time for the November election. Wouldn't it be better to have a city charter measure on a municipal election date as it currently stands? I just wait till next April.
That's up to you guys to decide. If you're gonna try to get the November election, you probably, if you're gonna talk, want to have these public hearings about input on the elected mayor and the other issues, you ought to do that sooner rather than later, because you'll have to get stuff to the ballot by the end of August, if you're gonna go to November, the general election.
Okay, I guess I'll switch that question to an assertion that it would be better to have municipal items on a municipal election date. So not rushing into this in time for November. Another highlight, in addition to the three that Councilor Schachter helped highlight: election of mayors, at-large election of councilors, date of the election. I would add for the council another one to consider, if we do pursue this at all, is the recommendation that was in the packet for the process of replacing missing council members who leave the council by resignation before their term is up. Currently, that's an appointment by the council. I think there was a good point made in the materials that if it's a long time till the next election, you ought to have an election to fill that seat. I think that's a good idea, but in any case, if we're going to consider major changes, I would suggest we put that one on the list for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, we'll see none. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, John.
Now, thank you all for taking the time to think about this. You know, the group really did work hard at this, and we appreciate your attention to it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks to the group as well.
Yeah, I was just saying, I appreciate you all.
I'm sorry.
I appreciate the work that you all.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody from the public here that'd like to voice their opinion on the Charter Commission update? We'll see none. So I think I'll bring it back to council and we'll see what we want to do with this. Would we actually need a formal action to move this forward? Can we stop it tonight? What?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's up to you guys, how
Okay.
you want to handle that. I could see any number of iterations of this. You could direct staff to come up with a plan to engage the public on a couple of these issues. If you wanted to, you could leave things as they are and recognize, on those, let me break it into two groups. Those larger items, if you wanted to go out and get some public input or not. I think on the technical amendments, that's something that we may want to look at maybe for spring next year. So we're not necessarily like in a rush to get to a ballot. I can see some value in that if that's the direction council wants to go. I think you guys can just give direction from the dais to start working on that or working towards that on the technical cleanup. So any of those, but some formal direction from you guys at this point would be good so that, and I think thanking the Charter Commission too for all the work they did to get it this far.
Okay, excellent. Let's try that. I'll bring it back to council and we'll start with Councilor Small to see if we have some sort of direction to where this should go.
Yeah, I thought we were going to be asked to make a motion. So having not to do that, I suggest.
I think I want to have a little discussion. This is a little, not ordinarily, but I want to talk a little bit about it first and then we'll see what the direction is and then we'll take a motion and formal action in that direction.
I maybe jumped to a conclusion, though. I thought that council's direction had been given that we were not interested in the four major topics, revising our charter for the four major topics, that we were comfortable leaving them the way they were, but that we.
Could you please say what the four are, just so we.
Choosing a mayor, moving the election making all council people at-large elected officials. And I've added Steve's process of
Okay.
replacing council
Okay.
members. Cleaning up the language was something that we thought probably should be done, but wasn't urgent. And that's the conclusion that I thought we had reached and transmitted, but maybe we need to do that another way.
Well, I think tonight is a good time to do that, to move it forward. So Counselor Schachter.
Well, in reflection, those top of the line items, the only one I sitting up here would consider and like to hear the public would be the change to November eventually, not right now. Because I think there is enough information that the turnout is significantly higher. There's some risk that it might get buried by national events, but I suspect the sheer numbers and the heightened awareness in a November election might lead to a more representative election. That's one. The technical ones, the other things I think are working well. The technical ones, I would consider an April election next April. We have one anyway coming up. If we don't change it, that we consider the technical, the procurement and would be one. And what Counselor Smith said, perhaps a replacement, that might be enough appetite for the general public initially and good rationale.
Thank you. Quick question for you, Sumner. Would you want another discussion about these details, or can we do this tonight and move it in that direction?
I feel it can be moved tonight if
If-
the
okay.
if the rest of the council does.
Thank you. Counselor Townsley.
I think I agree with Counselor Smith about, kind of the opposite of what you say as far as November versus April. It just seems to me, and I'm also, like Carl said, usually by the time I get to the ballot, if there's 2 pages of items, and I get down to the Supreme Court judges, I'm like, no, these lawyers need another job. But, I just really think that in April, we would have better attention to it. That's just a different piece on there, but I'd be comfortable too, picking 1 or 2 and saying, let's put these changes on there, maybe have public hearing if we need it. And then, pick something at that point, maybe after some public feedback on it. To me, I think like Ray said, it's pretty much, none of us felt really strongly about it,
Right.
but maybe there's somebody out in the public that does. So we should hear from them if they want to talk.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Oh, I thought I did. It is green. Let's do it again. Please.
So yeah, I agree with Counselor Schmel. I think that we discussed it before and didn't find anything too compelling. I do recall the discussion around the April versus November. And I think there's some validity to us getting lost in the sauce when you're on the November ballot with a lot of the other issues. I think it's nice to keep things really local, hyper local, especially I'm thinking of like even just running a campaign and your message trying to compete with all the national messages. I think that it could get, I think we might miss some things. I read through about the process to replace a missing council person. And it, to me, I think makes sense the way that we're doing it rather than having a special election, because the way that it says if it's a short term, like close to the election date, it just is a void. So it's not that we're electing somebody to fill a short-term position, we're just leaving the position empty, if I'm reading it correctly.
Yeah, just for the mechanics of that. So if it's within a certain number of days,
90 days.
90 days of the election, you leave it vacant and it just goes on the ballot.
Correct.
So if it is longer than that, the charter requires you to appoint someone, but then they need to be elected at the next, it's not to serve out the term, it goes to the next regular election.
Correct.
So the longest that you can conceivably have somebody appointed is if somebody were seated as a new council member, resigned the next day, it would be a 2-year appointment until the next regular election, the way the charter currently reads.
Got it. So I agree that it's a little messy to do it that way, but I think it could get more messy if we changed it. So I am not in favor of changing that for that reason.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Weimer.
Question for Carl.
Oh, you just turned him off.
Something's up. Something's up. Let's do it again. Yeah, something's up.
Question for Carl. For some of the technical cleanup, if, we put an S at the end of a word and correct a spelling, if there is each one of those corrections a ballot item?
No, I think what we would do is try to take them in reasonable chunks that would be understandable if somebody read them as to what the changes were. So I don't think we can really do what, like at the state level, you'll have a ballot question that says miscellaneous cleanup to whatever, and you have no idea what the miscellaneous cleanup is. Not super comfortable doing that at the local level. So I think there's no requirement they all be in separate questions. I think they probably just need to be grouped together so that it makes sense to people.
There's enough context.
There's enough context around them and it doesn't create too long of a ballot. I think it's going to be more of an art than a science.
Okay. So I would be in favor of the procurement question in April of next year, and maybe some of the other technical cleanups that make sense, to Carl's point, enough but not too much. And then the big four, not super passionate. We don't always have to be passionate about things. Like sometimes it's just work to be done, but it's not, for me, it's not a lack of passion. It's just that I think things are probably okay where they are. Nothing was burning as far as needing change around that stuff. But I'm not passionate about the technical cleanup, but it's just it needs done, right? So I would say the procurement thing and then a handful of other changes, and let's just start knocking it off.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Schachter, but it's not working, so.
Make me work. There you go. I have a question and then I'll make a comment. Again, Carl, something you just said about the technical stuff. Is there enough, and for your opinion, are there enough technical items, whether they be the red omissions or the blue additions, that have no bearing on our legislative process at this point? They are just fixes, updates, or technical that don't affect the citizens or how the city is generally running. You think that they could be parsed out as such?
Punctuation?
Yeah, I think that, if we have grammatical errors, I'm probably okay just like fixing the grammatical error.
So,
but in terms of, there again, we have to go to an election to change the charter. So it just like.
I understand that. No, but what I'm getting at is if there are enough items that you and Tim and others go through and say, look, these are technical, these are grammatical or punctuation or updates that have no bearing on our residents per se, maybe that's a big lump that could be done all at once with the caveat in the PR that says, hey, we are making changes to update the charter to reflect correctness, but doesn't change the operation of the city. That may be able to knock off not just one or two at a time. And then the second one would be, as I'm just wondering if that could be lumped and conveyed.
No, I think it absolutely could. I think why I said it's a little bit of an art is like, how long is that question? Will people even read it? Or do you just check no, right? Like, I mean, there's, ballots are.
Depends on what language we can put in the ballot too, about the effect of these.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And so I think that's just where, if you guys have some direction that we want to bite off some of these technical ones, procurement, I think, is one that from a staff perspective, we would like to do.
Yep.
Then we'll just work on what that looks like, right? I don't think we need to kind of solve for it tonight. We'll try to make it as user-friendly as a question as we possibly can so that people understand what we're asking and why, and just, we're not trying to sneak something in. We're just trying to make it as clear as possible what you're voting on and why it makes sense when you read it.
I would just suggest over time that we do that ladder and see how many we can lump together easily. In the meantime, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion if I may.
I have one
Oh.
more quick little,
Oh,
Aaron. I
yeah.
think you're green. Mayor Pro
I
Tem
am.
Zelinski.
I don't know if this is appropriate to say this now or not, but I just really wanted to express my appreciation that you all went through this. This was like a nightmare for me to have to like read a document like this in such depth. And so it's so reassuring to know that with some minor changes for semantics and modernizing some things, as far as like, allowing for an electronic process, that this document has basically remained relevant for, I can't do math, was that 60 years? So it's pretty impressive. So thank you very much for that reassurance to know that this is still a good guiding document for our community.
Thank you. Counselor Smith.
Thank you. Since I think I'm reading the trend of the conversation heading towards some select items to suggest for further preparation for a possible future ballot. I wonder if we should put into the mix, along with procurement and select technical changes, a topic that on which we heard in a different context. Not so long ago, there was a public election amending the charter as regards land use, land sales, and such things. I think it was called Initiative A.
Two or 2A. I don't remember.
Whichever one it was. We learned not long after that there were some unintended or at least unfortunate consequences from that in terms of things as simple as a lot line adjustment, some very small land ownership adjustments that technically were constrained under this new amendment. Is that a cleanup item that ought to be considered?
I don't think it's one that I think I would like to see a few more years of that list of what works and what doesn't. That's a great example of unintended consequences, and I don't want to create other unintended consequences trying to fix an unintended consequence, if that makes sense. And so we've seen where it has been problematic on some simple stuff that would normally be able to get done, but I think we need to kind of build that case study, if you will, of where it is working well and where it's not working as well, before I'd ever suggest going back and proposing any changes, because I think it just feels a little odd to do that so quickly after it was just adopted.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Back to Councilor Schachter.
So I think we've got some consensus for directions for cleanup of the technical, but I would make a motion tonight that we get wording and changes subject to our feedback for the procurement item of the charter on the April 2027 election. Motion.
Your motion was to change the procurement.
We need to get the changes. Change the procurement item on the charter for the 2027 April election.
And you don't want to include technical fixes and.
I don't know if they're gonna be ready to, so.
For 2027, yes.
Okay, then likewise to try and consolidate, as many of the technical changes they can that they think can be digested and sent to the public. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Does everybody
I should
understand
have
the
clarified,
motion?
Tim's doing that work, not
Oh,
me.
that's fine. We have a motion to move, let's see if I got this. We have a motion to move the procurement update forward with some technical changes as well in the charter. Everybody understands that, where we are? Okay, excellent. Do I get a second? Counselor Smith.
I'm poised to second if the original maker of the motion would add consideration of the process on how missing council members are replaced.
I would take that as a separate motion.
Okay, then I'll wait.
Okay, so still the same motion, and I still need a second. Counselor Zelinski?
So I second Councilor Shatner's motion.
Okay, so at this point, we have a motion to move forward with, I say it again, I'm being redundant, but everybody needs to know, I'm moving forward with the procurement update and the technical update to the Charter Commission. Any discussion? Counselor Smith.
I'll be glad to move an amendment to the current motion to include in next preparations, change to the charter as regards the replacement of missing council members. I'll try it
Yeah,
this
no,
way
if
first.
if I may, I think what he did is he made a substitute main motion, which you have to consider first to amend
Right.
the current motion.
I just want to get a sense of the whole council at some point here and whichever mechanics you want to use, see if I get a second on this.
Is
as
there a
the first
second?
measure.
Would I have to amend my second?
As well, but he hasn't done the first one yet, so if we don't get a second, it just dies. We'll try it again later.
There's no second. So
Well, wait, Counselor Townsley.
I would say.
So now we have a
So
motion,
the
a
fir-
second, so now
to amend,
the context changed.
right.
So now the whole motion's different?
No, you still have to vote on it. So it's a
Have to vote on my
substitute main
change.
motion.
Got it.
So the motion is to amend the previous motion with the addition of the one item. If you take a vote on that, if it passes, then the motion you will be voting on would include that. amendment.
That item, okay, so we don't do this very often, as you can tell. Usually we just say yes and no, and we move on. Everybody clear on what we're doing? Okay, now, we have a subsequent motion, so everybody should have a chance to discuss the subsequent motion. Anybody want to say anything? Mayor Pro Tem Salinsky.
I'll just reiterate my former point, which is, I feel like that unnecessarily muddies the waters and adds a burden of expense and staff to have a special election. So I don't.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Smith?
Thank you. The logic that was presented in the materials from the Charter Commission are there to read, but my kind of paraphrase sense of that as something that seems logical is that while there is some extra burden and expense in holding a special election on any topic, this is kind of at the heart of governance, and that is representation. Going to a little bit of extra expense and effort to ensure elected representation for a longer period of time seems responsive to the citizens. The example that was offered during earlier discussion that this might be as much as 2 years minus 1 day, but it might be a year. And going a year seems like an opportunity to honor people's chance to pick their representative. And so I think it's worth the extra trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Schachter?
Well, I would say that the maker of the original motion, and encouraging this to be a separate motion, I would hate to muddy the waters, because we seem to have strong consensus for the first one, but a lot of questions about the second, of many of which we haven't discussed the ramifications or the alternation. So I won't be supporting Counselor Smith's amendment to the motion. I'm trying to clear the way for the motion to pass and then discuss it later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Salinsky.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, I'm not in any way diminishing the value of an elected representation. I would argue that by an elected council selecting somebody to fill that role, you are still provided an elected representation because the body is what's making that decision. Having sat through that process one time, and also observing the process in the past, I can see where, you know, they're well vetted, it's very public, it's very in-depth. I feel like we're honoring the intent of fulfilling that role by doing it the current process without adding an unnecessary complication. And for that reason, I'm comfortable with the way that it is.
Thank you. Counselor Schmall?
Carla, I apologize, I haven't read that part. Is there provision for a special election that might be held exclusively by the city with in-person voting that could be done fairly inexpensively, quickly and easily?
Any election, we have to follow the statewide election laws. Pretty much we're at about 10 grand on the low end for any election.
We can't bypass that.
You can't really bypass it. It just winds up being that we're required to follow a certain set of rules every time. And so it just is what it is.
Thank you. Councillor Townsend.
Carl, follow-up question on that, because, at first I'm like, well, it makes sense to go ahead and have another election, but what if somebody leaves with 100 days left?
Right.
So then now all of a sudden we've got to do an election. Is there?
Yeah. And yeah, it's, I think this is part of why the charter is actually written the way it is because you get into these weird spaces where the reality is, there's probably a window of about a year where you could have an election to replace that position if that's when it went vacant, because we can't have an election closer than 90 days to the next regular election. So
That's
if
why that's.
by the time you back out from that with enough time for candidates to put in, to be eligible, to get on a ballot and put an election together, you're about 180 days out from the next regular election. So you just keep kind of backing up. And so it's awkward in that 2-year period to get it done is essentially the reality of it.
Okay, excellent. Well, anybody else on council? Sorry, John.
Have a clarification if you don't mind.
Just a
Think-
clarification.
I think there's a misunderstanding here. You don't need to have a special election. We have elections quite often. Elect a councilman at the next election that occurs, be it federal, local, or whatever. You don't need a special election.
Isn't that what's already?
No. I mean, what it is it's the next regular municipal election. And so essentially it's a term of art. You would be calling a special election on the same date as whatever the federal election, whatever. It would be a November election, right? So it would add a November date that you could call an election and elect somebody at that date. So otherwise it would sit vacant until that date. So by way of example, if in the spring of 2027, somebody was elected day after the election, they resigned, the next election that was being conducted that would be available would be November of 2027. So either that seat would remain vacant or you would appoint somebody until the next election.
Right.
So
I just have can I ask a clarification then? Okay, so you just kind of touched on what I thought was the fact. So if somebody leaves, we appoint somebody, you said they still have to be elected the next election.
regular municipal election, which would be
Municipal
the
election.
29, which is why
Got
it
it.
could go
So
up
the
to 2 years.
only thing that's different, because we'd still, if there's gonna be a vacancy, we're not gonna want to necessarily leave that and have 6 of us up here, like, splitting votes. So we'd appoint somebody, and then it still could be 2 years of appointed until they
Right.
are elected. See what I mean by complicated?
Yeah,
It feels
yeah.
complicated.
Right. And so to
Okay,
John's
got
point,
you.
I mean, John,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Got you.
John's point was,
Yep.
and it's well taken, is that you
Yep.
could set that at November, but then there's a question, what do you do between April and November, or whatever the date was in
Yeah.
November, right? Like, so,
It's not
That's where-
another $10,000, but it is.
well, no, it's still another probably $10,000 to participate in a coordinated election with the county, which is what we'd be doing in November. We're required to coordinate.
Gotcha.
So that just is what it is there as well.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so real quick, Councillor Townsend.
I gotta be confused. So is it 1 year or 2 years? Because if somebody quit on the day after the election, then you would be going to the next year, which so it would only be 1 year.
No,
2 years.
it's 2 years because the next municipal election is every 2 years.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right, so now that we're confused,
Yeah.
Clarify it before you call.
well, it's very simple.
Yeah.
This is the call for the question on Councillor Smith subsequent main motion. That's the term. Not used to it. And with that, I think everybody's clear on what it is. So, that's what we're voting on. Call for the question, Ryan.
No Counselor Townsley, no Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski, no Mayor Dim, no Counselor Weimer, yes Counselor Schmal, yes Counselor Smith, no Counselor Schachter. It fails 5-2.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. We got that one out of the way. Now back to the main motion, which Councilor Schachter made to update the procurement clause in the charter and some cleanup around the charter. And that motion was to approve that with a second by Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. And again, if I see no more discussion on that, I'll call for the question.
That passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. So at this point, I think it's pretty clear we're going to move forward with those two items. And I mean, if the appetite arises for the other four, should we just bring it back?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Your council, you can make that call at a later date if you really want to come back and revisit those. I mean, having gone through the work session with you and this evening, I don't feel like there's really much of an appetite for that. So, you know, if something changes in the next year and a half, I'm sure you'll let us know.
We'll do council comments and get support and bring it forward. Okay, excellent. Moving on. Thank you for everybody's patience. Yes, thank you, Charlie. Thank you, John. Thanks to the commission. Planning file ARC 000-130-2025, minor site and architectural plan. And ROWENC 00028-2026, 210 8th Street. Maybe I should have just said 210 8th Street. A lot of numbers. Emery, please.
I will be Emery Ellingson, Community Development Department, and I will be sharing my screen. Okay, so this item, there's going to be two items tonight. One is a minor site and architectural plan, and then the second item is a right-of-way encroachment license. They are for the same project. So again, action item 1 is considering a minor site and architectural plan for the construction of a 30,000 square foot mixed use building with 24 residential units and 2 ground floor commercial spaces. And so this went to Planning and Zoning Commission in February, and the Planning and Zoning Commission made a recommendation for approval with a 4-0 vote. And so council action items tonight would be to approve the item with additional conditions, deny the item with providing findings, or continue the item. And so that's the first item. And then the second item is a right-of-way encroachment license associated with the project, specifically for an awning that would go over the sidewalk to the north of the building. And on this one, staff is recommending approval of the license with the findings and conditions in the staff report. And then the actions are similar to the first and what your options are. So I'll get into the application. And so again, the site of the application is 210 8th Street. So it's currently a surface parking lot downtown where the Bumbo food truck is currently operating. It's 7,500 square feet, and it's adjacent to the alley. So here's a picture of it as it exists today. So you can see it's this site right here. This is just a different angle of it facing east. It is located in the M2 mixed use zoning district, which is that pink area. So this property, like most of the properties around it, are in that zoning district. And then as you get further out of downtown, you do get into residential zoning districts and commercial zoning district. One unique thing about the property is it's in 4 different, what we would call special districts. So it's in the downtown overlay district. It's in the downtown development authority boundary. It's in the downtown core, and then it's also in the general improvement district boundary. And so those all have different impacts on the property, some of which I'll discuss in the presentation, and some of them I mentioned in the staff report. So just kind of an overview of the project. Again, there's 24 residential units, which are going to be on the 3 floors above, and then you have a ground floor commercial. So for example, downtown overlay district requires that, where you have the ground floor commercial. At present time, they don't have tenants for those spaces. But any tenant that would go in there would have to adhere to the downtown overlay uses. So again, There is also a basement too, which would mainly be storage for the residential units above, and then also the commercial spaces. And then here on this rendering, you can see right here, that's that awning that's subject to the right-of-way encroachment license application. So that extends out over the sidewalk. So as far as criteria for minor site and architectural plan, you have 4 of them. 1 and 2 is that the plan is consistent with general purpose and intent of the code, consistent with the standards of the code. 3 is that it's consistent with anything previously approved for the property. And then 4 is consistency with the comprehensive plan. So I'll go through these 4. So the first 2, just that it's consistent with general purpose of code, the standards of code. So again, the M2 zoning district, your downtown area, does not have any required setbacks. So you can build out to that lot line. You have a really strong connection with the streetscape and the sidewalk, which is exactly what we see here in the 2 existing buildings on that corner. And then another aspect of it too is your height. And so the maximum height in this district is 40 feet. And that's what this building is. It's 40 feet. And then you also do get some minor exceptions for things like a parapet wall. So this right here can go a little bit more over 40. And then same thing goes for an elevator shaft. So more or less, most of the buildings are right at that 40, again, with the parapet and the elevator shaft. That's all within what's allowed by code. It is also required, as it has more than 10 residential units, to have some deed restrictions, some inclusionary zoning. And so that's at 20% for what's called resident occupancy, and then also affordable. So in total, there'll be 5 units in this building. And again, just as a reminder, RO, resident occupied, basically means local workforce. So there's certain qualifiers for what would be a qualified resident, basically that they work here in city limits for an employer in city limits. And so that's one aspect of the deed restriction. And then the second is price. And so if those 5 units, the average rent cannot exceed 100% AMI, and none of the individual units can be more than 120% rental. So this is the 2025 table that's used. So again, 5 units in that building would have to be both of these, RO and then also affordable. Another aspect of the downtown districts, this is in the general improvement district. And one thing about that is any property in the general improvement district is exempt from off-street parking requirements. So this building does not have any off-street parking on site. Parking in the downtown, there's a variety of public options as shown on the map here. And then also, which the applicant can explain more, there's also other private options, both on properties that they own and then with some nearby property owners. So number 3, for criteria consistent with any previous land use, there's no previous land use approvals for this site. So this is not really applicable. Again, this is what it's currently used for. And then number 4, consistent with the comprehensive plan. So it's located here. So you can see downtown is called out in that maroon kind of red in the comprehensive map. The proposed project aligns with a number of goals from the comprehensive plan, being it's close to transit. You have a RAFTA bus stop and then Ride Glenwood Springs, both within about 500 feet of the property. It's also, it's a existing site. So there's all the infrastructure is there for development. It's also the comprehensive plan calls out identifying opportunities for vertical mixed use. So where you do have, residential above, commercial on the first floor. So again, number of goals are supported in the comprehensive plan. The project did go through the public notice process. So that includes letters, posted sign on property, and then also published notices in the Post Independent. The developer also chose, they were not required to do this, but they also held a neighborhood meeting at the Glenwood Springs Public Library in February. In addition, they also met with the Historic Preservation Commission. That was not required, but just given that it's in the downtown, that was kind of a cursory review. We're just some discussions about the building. And then they also went to the Downtown Development Authority. They are located within the DDA's boundaries. So they went to that meeting in February where the DDA had some questions about the building, trash, aspects of the project. So in total, 1 public comment was received, and that was included in the packet. So again, the action items in front of you tonight, the first is the minor site and architectural plan, and then the second is the right-of-way encroachment license. If you do have any alternative motions, you do need to insert your reasoning for the 4 criteria for the architectural and site plan. as well as right-of-way encroachment license. And then, of course, there also is the motion to continue. So.
Thank you, Emery. We'll bring it back to council for questions to staff, and we'll start with Councilor Schachter.
Thank you, Emery, for clarification, because the discussion and motions were happening quite a while ago. Could you explain what the commercial requirements are and limitations on the first floor of this building?
Sure. So it would have to, with the downtown overlay district, there are certain uses. Let me back up for a second. M2 zoning district establishes all the uses for that zoning district. Then on top of it is the downtown overlay. That specifically identifies certain uses, such as food and beverage, retail, personal services. So it's a smaller list than what is normally allowed across the larger zoning district. And so the idea is to kind of encourage a very active downtown. So a lot of retail uses, a lot of food and beverage.
Is there a requirement for certain type for sales tax generation?
Essentially, yes. All the categories that are allowed do generate sales tax. Yes.
Thank you. And just a suggestion that might help us, unless I'm missing it. Could you all put page numbers on your document? So when we refer to actions and conditions, it might be helpful instead of just looking up above at our scrolling. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Smith.
Procedural questions. First, if I remember right, we're asking questions now of Emery. See a separate opportunity to ask questions of the proponent if they come up.
Correct.
Thank you. I note in your summary that the particular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission that considered this and forwarded their recommendations on February 24th had only 4 members in attendance, a quorum, but barely. Has there been any sense of misgiving among the planning and zoning members or staff that needed a larger group, or is everybody satisfied that 4 people could do it?
I should add, I realized that was not included in the staff report, that one of the commissioners did recuse themselves from the vote due to knowing the person who submitted the public comment. So that originally there were 5. And then as far as your question, I mean, quorum, had Planning and Zoning Commission not felt they wanted to move forward with that, they could have had the option to continue it. So.
The parking provisions, this may be a hybrid question for staff and then later. The parking provisions that you summarized, basically, there's no off-street parking required for a proposal like this in this location. But there's mention of other parking opportunities. Existing parking lots are over at the sister development, the hotel. Does the fact that the parking is not required mean that we don't actually scrutinize those arrangements either? I mean, how assured are we that those arrangements with other private parking lots or otherwise are actually going to come through?
Let me jump in.
Sure.
No, you don't.
Thank you.
That's basically the answer. Sorry.
Does the Planning and Zoning Commission or the rules consider the fact that there are parking spaces off-street that exist now, they're going to have a building built over them, the loss of whatever number of parking spaces are in that lot now? Is that something to be considered?
No, not really. I mean, keeping in mind that this is the property owner is developing their property for a use that's permitted in the zone district. So I think it would be suggesting that I mean, you just can't consider whether or not those parking spaces are going away or not, because you're looking at the proposal that the property owner is proposing that is a use permitted in the zone district.
Thank you. Down in there in the kind of quiet part of the memo, it says that a signing plan is not yet prepared and is to be completed later. I think is the phrase that's included. Why later? why the delay? Is there any indication of what signs are even contemplated and whether they're necessary at all?
At this time, I mean, they don't have, the sign permits come in at a later date. If at that time when they submit signage, it doesn't comply with code, they'd have to apply for a variance, go forward with whatever approval is there. So just the signage is not part of the site and architectural plan.
So by doing it later, that sounds like that would be primarily a staff exercise to review whether they comply. If they seek a variance, it would go to P and Z and maybe come here.
Correct, yeah. If they down the road submitted a sign that didn't comply, they'd have to get it.
So there's another opportunity for administrative or even procedural review of that.
Correct.
Thank you. The P and Z report and the staff report note a reported feature of 21 bicycle parking spaces in something called a storage space. I didn't see any renderings or any description of kind of where that is, how convenient it is, how assured we are that will actually happen, how assured we are that won't get. Let me back up. Because do I understand correctly that one of the motivations for the general encouragement of infill development like this and the removal of car parking restrictions is that this is an area where other modes of transportation could work and should work. It's close to transit, as you noted in your report, providing bicycle parking spaces as mentioned, but not described in specifics. There are services and activities close by. A walking pedestrian atmosphere is the intention of the 4 overlays that you described. Am I kind of following that correctly? So bicycle parking spaces kind of seem consistent with that. Where is the assurance that those will actually be built and retained?
So they're located, yeah, they're located in the basement, and it is part of the plan that's in front of you. So if that plan is approved by council tonight and the applicant wants to change that in the future, that would be a minor change to their approved plan, so as represented.
Do you have any sense of how convenient those parking spaces are for a cyclist to get to the street?
I think I'll probably let the applicant.
I'll save
answer
that for
Yeah,
them.
they can bring up
Thank
the
you.
floor plan.
In other sorts of housing, basically condominium, where I think the city code requires or even encourages a homeowners association where you've got common structure, but individual ownership, you want an HOA for people to take care of common needs and common maintenance. Is there such a creation in a building like this where the units are rental?
So I think, and again, this might be something the applicant can answer more, but they'll probably have a property manager on site to deal with that, both for the commercial tenants and then the residential ones.
But there's no city requirement for a residence council or anything like that?
Correct, no.
Okay. The 20% special apartments, there's 20% noted as deed restricted, so kind of a financial consideration, 20% residential occupied, kind of a geographical consideration. Are those two sets of 20% or do they overlap?
They can overlap, and typically what we see is developers do have them overlap, where a unit will be that RO deed restriction and the affordable one. They don't have to, though. They could, if they wanted to, have these 5 units be resident occupied and at market rate, and then these 5 be affordable. So you don't have to. A lot of times we see it, though. They do get combined.
Thank you. I think that's all I have for staff kind of questions.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Small.
Having been through a little bit of a thought process about our charter and what's in there and what's not in there and what is in there that probably needs to be revised, I have to ask, did somebody think it was a good idea to have a 24-unit apartment without any parking? Is that intentional or is it accidental that happened?
Intentional.
I can answer that historically. It's been intentional since 1985. That's when the GID was formed and the parking requirement downtown was removed for development. So it has been, over the course of whatever number of years that has been, pretty much a permanent component of how the downtown develops.
Councilor Townsley?
Two things, actually three things. You mentioned in there that DDA had some comments, but maybe I just misplaced or can't find them on here. Are they in there somewhere and I'm just not seeing the DDA comments?
No, they're pretty much just paraphrased in the section.
On which page number?
Their main questions were, so they had some questions about how proximity to nearby buildings. They had a lot of questions on construction methods, downtown, how you accomplish that. And then also options for making the buildings into condos. So that was the general nature of their comments.
So they didn't have concerns about parking, or that they weren't allowed?
They
address
brought
those,
it, I
or-
mean, similar questions is how does that work in the GID?
Okay. And then, and I guess these, maybe wait for the developer on these, but the one other question I had, Councilman Smith brought up, we do the 20%. We allow, who's in charge of whether or not those overlap or don't overlap? Is that our decision or is that the developer's decision?
It's at the developer's discretion, but like I said, typically what we see is that they do have those overlap, but it's not required.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional questions? Okay, we'll see none. I just have a quick question about the planning and zoning process. Were there any variances?
Yes, there were a number of design variances for the design of that were approved by Planning and Zoning Commission.
But only design variances?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. I think that was it. And the height is within use of, is within the
Correct.
limit. Okay,
40 feet.
all right. Excellent. Thank you, Emery. Would the applicant care to come forward? Present your item. Please state your name for the record.
Good evening, council members. My name's Chip Whipple. I am the principal of Whipple Development. My lovely assistant here, my daughter, is also a partner, and she's head of what's it? Construction management? No, project design management,
day-to-day.
all of the above. I have my wife here also, who's works with us closely on design and logistics and edit. She's the editor. On the screen, my son Alex is here, who's the construction manager. Joining him is Steve Hopkins, our chief designer, and also Sven Ahlstrom, who is our architect. That is our primary group. So, thank you for taking the time to listen to us tonight here. Yeah. This is, okay, it did come up, okay. This site is centrally located in downtown Glenwood Springs, surrounded by existing commercial, residential, and civic uses. It benefits from immediate access to public parking, walkable streets, nearby retail activity. It's also served by public transportation, reducing reliance on the automobile. The property has strong connections to the river corridor and downtown amenities. It sits entirely with the M2 district, with mixed use, development, and urban density are not only appropriate, but encouraged. Architecturally, the building presents a thoughtfully modern interpretation of the traditional character of Glenwood Springs. The design incorporates a refined material palette of brick, limestone, stucco, and metal accents, resulting in a facade that's both contemporary and contextually appropriate for the downtown core. The ground floor retail activates the street and supports a vibrant downtown environment. This project will provide meaningful benefits to the Glenwood Springs community, most notably through the addition of 24 new apartment units, offering a balanced mix of 1 and 2 bedroom layouts. The development also includes 2 street-front retail spaces along 8th Street, each with separate entrances and expansive glass storefronts designed to foster an active, pedestrian-oriented streetscape. The project will substantially upgrade the underutilized vacant property with a 4-story mixed-use building, significantly increasing access or assessed value. Importantly, this building supports economic vitality and housing needs while generating a net fixed positive for the city of Glenwood Springs through increasing taxable value and ongoing retail sales tax revenue. Street level includes 2 retail spaces of approximately 2,200 square feet and 2,540 square feet, each with a private office and restroom, a dedicated residential lobby, and secure mailroom for tenants, a property management office, a full-service laundry room, trash area for all household garbage and recyclables, a transportation garage designed for 20 or more e-bikes, e-scooters, bicycles, etc., along with electric recharging stations, 2 stairwells plus a fully accessible passenger elevator. The lower level, the basement level, so just to clarify what Emery had mentioned as the bicycle access being in the basement, it is not. It's on the main level, making it easily accessible for our tenants. Lower level, the basement level provides tenant storage area for each retail store, private storage units for each apartment residence. Each residential floor, that's floors 2, 3, and 4, will include 5 one-bedroom, one-bath apartments ranging from 532 to 643 square feet, 3 two-bedroom apartments ranging from 804 to 912 square feet in accordance with city requirements, 5 units making 2 two-bedroom and 3 one-bedroom units will be rent restricted, and the building is also ADA compliant for all the apartments. So this is a representation. You gotta go.
Okay.
This is a representation of the 2-bedroom units. Can you go back one more? And this would be a 1-bedroom unit. So Candace is going to speak a little bit about the parking situation.
For the project, we took a close look at parking and traffic to ensure it fits appropriately within downtown context. Development is located in the core of Glenwood Springs, an area where walkability, access to services, and transit naturally reduce reliance of personal vehicles. From a parking standpoint, we're intentionally using existing downtown resources. We've secured 10 off-street parking spaces for residents nearby, and the city and CMC parking garage is within walking distance with free overnight availability. There are also multiple public parking lots and on-street spaces close to the site, along with bike storage and e-bike charging to support alternative transportation. Using a conservative downtown planning assumption of about 3/4 of a vehicle per household based on the site's downtown location, mixed-use nature, rapid access, bike infrastructure, and our operating experience at a recently completed project at the Western, 24 units translates to roughly 18 vehicle total. That demand is easily supported by the secured off-site spaces and the large supply of existing public parking in the immediate area. To put that into context, there are 400 to 450 available public parking spaces nearby, so this project represents only a small fraction of the existing capacity. On the traffic side, a study by Apex Consulting engineers using ITE standards shows the project will generate about 201 trips per day and a roughly 15 trips during the peak hours. When distributed across the downtown street network, the impact is minimal and no roadway or intersection improvements are required. Overall, this is a low-impact project that aligns with the city's goals for a walkable, efficient downtown and makes smart use of parking and infrastructure that already exists.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Happy to take questions.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Back to council. Any questions? You got another one? You're good?
I got one more.
Okay.
So we respectfully request your approval of this design and our application as submitted. We believe the project substantially meets the intent and standards of the M2 mixed-use district, enhances the downtown core, and will contribute new housing and commercial vitality to Glenwood Springs. We've made every possible reasonable effort to comply with the city's design requirements while balancing constructability, durability, energy performance, and long-term urban quality. Thank you for your time and consideration.
All right. Thank you very much. Back to council. Questions to the applicant? Council Townsley.
Can you expand on the 10 units of parking that you've looked at? Are those permanent? Where and whereabouts are they?
Yeah.
So Maxwell Anderson has given us use of 10 of their parking spots that we'll be renting from them.
Is that behind the Western?
Yes, and across the street.
Okay.
So they haven't told us exactly where, but they will be giving us 10 rental spots.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of our biggest questions when we did the Western. And it was, how is it going to work out not providing any parking? And as it turns out, we have never had a complaint from one of the tenants in there. Most of them work and
Live down,
live
yeah, well, obviously
within
downtown, but
a
work
1
within-
to 2 block radius.
Yeah.
It really has worked out well. And I think the intent of the parking limitations for the downtown core is actually worked out quite well, at least from our experience. So we anticipate the same type of parking situations here and hope that most of the tenants will not need cars and they won't have cars. And we do have RAFTA, within a half a block away. So I think it's an interesting concept that you guys have come up with. And I think it was 2 years ago on our first pre-planning go-around, we actually had a plan that proposed parking on site. Now, we were told that go back and redesign the building because we don't want parking on this site. The concern there was 8th Street and 9th Street, which twice a day is quite congested, and they didn't want to see the egress or ingress of cars going out there and further clogging the street up. So we did. We went back and redesigned it, and this is the result of that.
Good.
One last
Okay.
question on that same thing, just since you're the developer on both of them, have you got a number for, in the Western, how many cars are actually assigned to the people that live there? And do you know how many cars are within that unit?
Yeah, within the 11 units, I know of five units that have cars.
And 6 that don't?
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sawinski.
Councilor Townsley just answered or asked the question that I was about to ask. So just for clarification, your experience with the Western has been like your tenant is drawn to that because they're already kind of living, working downtown and don't need that. Is it more of like a correlation that you found?
I think that they're expecting more city living being downtown. And with that comes restrictions with cars, but they've never come back and said, we don't want to live here because there's no parking. And we have offered them also those same rental spaces, and not one of them has taken a rental space. So,
And how long have those 11 units been occupied?
2 years.
2 years, thank you. Turnover, has there been much turnover? Or has it been consistent?
I would say that we do 1-year leases, so
Yeah.
people have been there a year. We've had some turnover after a year, but they're studios in 1 bedroom, so they're a little bit smaller, and I think it's just a better place for most people.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Counselor Smith?
Thank you. Among other things, thank you for already addressing the one question that I had raised. Want to be sure I understood your clarification about the bicycle parking area. The charging outlets, there's a nice bonus. It's on the ground floor, again, easy to get a bicycle in and out without stumbling over stairways or?
No, it has outside access.
Okay.
So there'll be a code for the tenants,
Mhm.
and they can just enter the bike corral right on the alley side.
And just roll straight on out.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you. You highlighted what we've seen in the city's own provisions with these overlay zones, that there's lots of accommodation for mobility without a car. But you also mentioned that it's not only available because of the location, but it's encouraged, I think the word you use. What other encouragements are you offering in addition to what's already inherently in place?
Spaces that you go.
Oh, yeah, just that they have the opportunity to rent their own parking spot if they would like to. That way.
So you're not giving away free rafta passes or anything?
Oh, no, nothing like that. We could think of, some other bonuses to people if they don't have a car, but as of now, I think just the walkability and having less cars in the area.
Thank you. I don't think this is a part of the application consideration, but I might get away with asking it. Do you have a sense of who's going in the commercial or what?
Yes.
Are you recruiting or have commitments?
Well, again, we really wanted to make, there was 2 reasons for looking for a tenant that would not only be able to use the retail space as walk-ins, but we also wanted to increase an amenity of the overall building. So we're thinking of a coffee shop with a seating area and a place that tenants can get out of their apartments and go down and meet with friends, work,
Neighbors.
just enjoy the space.
Thank you.
We don't have a tenant for the second one though. Do you guys have any suggestions?
I pose a kind of a clumsy question to staff that they said maybe you would handle better. Is there anything comparable to what would be a homeowners association in an owned location? You have a tenants council or anything like that, and do you need that?
Well, it generally comes with condominiums where the homeowners,
Right.
These are not homeowners, they're just tenants.
Right, do you have anything
But-
parallel for renters to coordinate or?
Well, we do. We have a management office and a management kind of a residence on site, so that if the tenants need any type of assistance, it'll be there, easily accessible. As far as, could we have card games at night or something in the lobby? I mean, sure, that's all possible. there's a pretty nice group that are at the Western, and they've gotten to know each other, and it's a friendly atmosphere. We provided a lobby where there's congregation there, you know, irrespective of the retail space. So there's opportunities.
Thank you. Last question, I'm pretty sure. At either of these locations, but this one, which is what we're considering, what factors prompted you to make these rental residences as different from an owned condo arrangement? Is there anything about, in particular, about city structure, ordinances, code that encourages you one direction over the other?
I think, as everyone knows, housing is difficult, and as young professional, you know, you might not be ready to buy anything. And for me, at least, you know, it's a great start for people and an opportunity to come to Glenwood and, you know, try it out, not necessarily buy. And I think I just looked at someone like myself and, you know, not wanting to like get roommates or something. So these spaces are smaller, and having access to everything like the farmer's market you can walk to, you know, the stores, and being close to people in the downtown area and trying to be part of the community. I think that was kind of the vision behind it.
But,
Great, thank you.
But with that being said, we are still tossing around the idea of if we get, say, a request, we could condominiumize one of the floors. You see that many times in cities where it'll be rental units, it'll be hotel units, and then the top floors will actually be condominiums. So there is a, you know, a slight possibility that we could go that route where the building's being set up from a utilities point of view.
There's the question. Structurally, that could be
Structurally,
done.
it can be done.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Part of my motivation in asking that was that question. Part of it was the one public comment that we received where at least one person in real estate here says rental market's overloaded. Have you done enough market research to feel comfortable that this is the way to start out?
Yes. If you, we don't feel there's a real comparison with our location, our building, with what's happened by Target and up on the hill there.
I've had very good luck posting at the Western, and maybe for only a couple days, and getting people responding to it. So from our market research just down the street, we don't see it as being a problem.
Yeah, we've really never had a vacancy.
No.
That's a good measure. Thank you very much. Appreciate helping me with those details.
Sir.
Thank you. Council Townsley.
Real quick question is when you build out, you know, we've got community broadband here. Did you use community broadband in your other building versus?
We did.
Thank
yes.
you.
It's been great.
They were quite persuasive.
Okay, any other questions to the applicant? Okay, we'll see none. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. Anybody from the public like to come forward and comment? We'll see none. We'll close the public portion of this hearing, and I'll bring it back to council. I'm entertaining them. These are two actions, by the way. We got to do the, minor site and then the architectural plan. So we'll do it separately. Entertaining a motion in the minor site review first. In planning file, ARC 0000130-2025. That's next. Councilor Schachter.
I would move for approval of the minor site application ARC 00013020225 with the findings on, I believe, page 17 and the conditions on page 18, wherever they are on the staff report.
So we have a motion to approve based on the findings, Emery.
Yeah, motion to approve.
Okay, excellent. Do we care about the page? I mean, there's.
They're in the
It's
report.
in the
I
report,
referred to them
right?
in the
Yeah,
report.
it's, I think only to the extent that, you identified it as contained in the staff report. I
Okay,
think
good
that's
enough. Okay, thank you. We have motion approved and, Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Start with Council Schachter.
I just want to quickly say two things. Number one, not everybody up here was involved. There was a lot of work for encouraging this type of project with retail downstairs and mixed use. So I'm glad to see it here, and I believe the applicant has addressed parking in a way that generally exceeds most of residential development capability downtown, so I appreciate that. I would also remind, if my memory is correct, and it usually isn't, that site has not always been blank. There was a savings and loan there, Majestic Savings and Loan, on that site during the 60s, 70s, 80s, I believe, next to Haycock and Barnes. So it hasn't always been a vacant site. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky.
So for comments, I just want to say, what I really like about this is I think it's really very aesthetically pleasing. I like the infill idea. I see the opportunity to create some vibrancy with increased like foot traffic and activity downtown. I love the idea of the expanded commercial space for future businesses. I would ask if we could look at our parking policies. I have experienced firsthand as a neighboring business when residential goes in, there is some overflow. I don't think there's a ton of commercial right there, but people who park and pop in and pop back out at those quick spaces, I think those are fine. It's the longer term lots that get clogged up. And so I think if we could just look at that and make sure that that policy still serves us well, I would ask that we could put that on a feature. And then additionally, I had one other question and that I forgot to ask of you, Emery. Are there any of our development fees that would go towards like a parking solution should a concern or a problem arise? I know I can't remember.
Sure. And so as Carl had mentioned, the GID was established back in the 80s, and that is a annual basis. It's a taxed amount. So that, and part of that money, for example, I think was on consent agenda, the money that went to pay for those repairs to the parking structure, I believe came partly from the GID fund. So it's kind of built in already, so this property's already been paying into it. Now, as far as like, is that enough money to support what we want to see in the downtown? That's probably a bigger question.
Got it. I knew that there was something and it was like the value of a parking space and I legit couldn't remember. So thank you for that.
Not a development fee. It's just built into property taxes.
Yeah, it's just so everybody is clear. It's a mill levy that is assessed within the core downtown.
Yeah.
It goes into the general improvement district. It's probably not nearly enough to actually solve any of the parking problems, but that was the intent of it in 1985 when it was put in place, was to address parking through a property tax.
So there aren't any additional fees attached to a development that would address that?
No, there's not. And I do think, from what I'm hearing from you guys, I think there's a couple of areas that unrelated to this, because obviously as a criteria to determine this application, parking isn't one of them.
Yep.
But in terms of larger policy consideration, is that parking policy in the downtown, and then also is it tied in some way to a paid parking program, and is it tied to parking payment in lieu fees that might be more on an equitable basis with what's actually necessary to put those in place? I think those are all big policy considerations we probably should be talking about, and I think are on Trent's horizon for this year anyway.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Townsley.
I think I would echo that. I think the general improvement district that was done 40 years ago, sooner than later, I would like to see that come up before, I like this project. I like what you did with the Western. It makes me feel a lot better about it, how you constructed that, what it looked like. I think you did a great job with that. So my concerns are all with parking, which doesn't really affect you here, but I would like to move that up. I walked around and talked to some of the downtown people down there, and so a few people had mentioned to me that when they started their businesses down there, or had their businesses, that parking behind them next to the county building, we had mentioned something at some point about maybe doing a parking structure there, a parking garage. That would be something I'd also like to have some, input come back to at some point, maybe sooner than later. Because what scares me is that there's a lot of other neat little spots downtown that a project like this would look good. And I'm sure it would be, a developer would look at it and go, hey, this is great. Before we get all of the parking spots taken downtown, I'd like to address it while we still can. I think those are the other question that I had, because I think it's going to be a real issue with where this building is. I know there's a certain number of licenses available because I used to work on the block next to this where you could get a license and keep it going. And I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but if we give 2 licenses to this building, you're going to have 2 parking spots on 8th Street taken up. I mean, if I lived there, I would, in the heartbeat, I would try to get one of those and I would just park there permanently all the time. So that's a real concern to me.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Smith.
Thank you. This is a marvelous project. It fulfills explicit provisions in documents already in place, whether they're zoning districts or strategic plans. But in the more practical sense, the notion of infill development versus sprawl, the notion of not merely coincidentally being in a walkable, bicycleable, transit-oriented station, it enhances that by providing the housing at that location. It's creatively designed just in the physical appearances from what we can see from the renderings. And it really is, again, not just technically in compliance with these important community-based goals, but the people involved in it seem to be embracing the spirit of that, trying to actually enhance our downtown as a diverse and livable space. So I'm very enthused about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? No? Just real quick. So this project, you guys did a great job with the Western, and I feel looking at this, it's going to be another success. So I have no doubt. Design is fine. I have no problem with it. I wish the windows upstairs were just a little bit bigger, just a little bit bigger. A little more light, but that's fine.
We just did that.
Yeah. But what really matters here is this building hits pretty much every single plan and every single study and every single overlay and every single whatever we've ever done hits it to 100%. It's an infill project. It's in the GIV, which will create tax for parking. It's the downtown overlay that we did. It has retail on the bottom. It's extremely important. It supplies 5 deed restricted housing, which comes from the housing strategy. It fits the comp plan to the T. I mean, this is exactly what we're looking for. And to be honest, any building that will eat up a surface parking lot is a plus for downtown Glenwood Springs, because a surface parking lot is a dead spot, and dead spots are detrimental to downtowns. This is an infill. It eats up the parking lot. It creates space for people to live and shop and hang. And again, that fits the bill for the comprehensive plan. And I am 100% in favor of this. And with that, I will call the question.
Yes, Councillor Townsley. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski. Yes, Mayor Dame. Yes, Councillor Weimer. No, Councillor Schmal. Yes, Councillor Smith. Yes, Councillor Schachter. It passes 6-1.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much. Thanks for all the info. Moving on to second action. Yes, we do. Second action in this, which is the right-of-way encroachment. Thank you for the ROW. I couldn't think what it is, but yeah, 00028-2026. You want to do it? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski.
So I'd like to move to approve the right-of-way encroachment, Article 00028-2026 at 210 8th Street. As with the findings that are included in the staff report and conditions.
I know it's land use. We don't do this too often. So, Counselor Schachter, please.
I second the motion. Thank
All
you.
right, excellent. Any discussion on the right of way? Counselor Smith.
This seems to make sense to me. I realized I forgot to ask a question. Reading the report, whereas sidewalk width requirements in this location are a minimum of 8 feet, and the sidewalk contemplated here is actually larger than that, I think 12 feet. Does anything about this overhang or any other aspect clutter that 12 feet to make it unusable?
No, it'd be the awning is elevated above where most pedestrians would be. So, no.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or discussion on the right of way? I just have a quick comment. I find it silly that we have to do an encroachment on an awning. I could see surface level, but airspace? I know. I'm just.
To change the policy.
I know. Which policy would that be?
That would be your code. That
The
says
development
protection.
code?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's in the right of way.
Oh,
section.
no, my
Yeah.
favorite, right?
Yeah, so yeah, you can absolutely make that change. But
Okay,
it's,
because it would also be easier to do larger awnings and stuff in front of restaurants and, you know?
yeah, I mean, it's a whole different discussion.
I know,
about-
I know.
yeah.
But things like this trigger these points, right? Like Counselor said about parking. I know. All of you are. That's great. That's what we do. Yeah, excellent. Okay, if there's no more discussion, I will call for the question. The motion is to approve.
It passes unanimously.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Whipples, for being here. Great project. Looking forward to it. Thanks for the process. It's gonna look good. Thank you. Thank you, Emery. Thanks, everybody. Do we need?
Need
quick-
5
All right,
minute
I'll
break.
call a 5-minute break. All right. Call to order the second half of the city council meeting for tonight. The second half. Not the first half, second half. Item 12, which is employer-based rental assistance program, and Watkins is going to tell us about it.
Good evening, Council. Watkins Folk Gray, Housing Development Manager and Senior Planner. Let me get this started. So what we're talking about tonight is our employer-based rental assistance program, which is kind of a mouthful. So if it's all right, I'll be calling it just the rental assistance program tonight. This was a brainchild of the Workforce Housing Fund Advisory Board. Oh, do I need to share my screen, don't I? Yeah. Okay, now we're on the right track. It was created by the Workforce Housing Fund Advisory Board, and it's one of their two signature programs. City Council, you all approved it in 2024 and November of 2024, and then it went into effect in April of 2025, 1 year ago. It was approved as a pilot program, a 1-year pilot program. So here we are in April of 2026, and so that is why this item is before you tonight. The purpose of the program is to reduce employee turnover at local businesses, fill vacancies, do things like minimize commute times and distance traveled to jobs in Glenwood. This was kind of a surprise to some employers when I talked to. They said, you know, I have someone who'd be interested in this program, but they live in Sylvan. And I said, perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. They need to move to Glenwood. Then we will subsidize them, because that's what we're trying to do, is get people to commute a shorter distance. We also want to reduce the share of cost burden renters from what we measured in our strategic housing plan of 44% total renter households that we think are cost burdened. And so this makes a very small dent toward that problem. I'm going to try to give you guys a little bit more data and context with those numbers. A lot of numbers here. As I just mentioned, 44% of our renter households are cost burdened. That means 44% of renter households pay more than 30% of their monthly income on housing expenses. And so here are some raw numbers, in terms of AMI ranges, how many vacant jobs there were in these AMI categories you're seeing. Just to give you a little bit more color, people that are in this 30 to 60% AMI, people who make between 30 and 60% of the median income. We're talking about people like fast food and counter workers, dry cleaning workers, veterinary assistants, cashiers, some health and personal care aides. In the middle, we have things like preschool teachers, social workers, mail carriers, other levels of teachers. And then once we get toward the higher ends, we have professions like dietitians and nutritionists, graphic designers, construction and building inspectors, police and sheriff and patrol officers, chefs and head cooks, loan officers. And some of the key guidelines of this program, the rental assistance program, is that businesses need to be in good standing with the city. We do 1-year contracts with employers. It's available only for workers who make less than 120% AMI. We require pretty thorough documentation when they're applying for the program, so that we know exactly how much they're making and that we know that they've been with their employer for a year. That's another one of the requirements. The city is also not a party to any leases. We don't interact with landlords at all. I administer this program, and I don't interact with either the landlords or the renters themselves, only the businesses. And the employers provide pay stubs as proof of participation. I should also add that the employers, one of our guidelines is that employers can only have one employee that's involved in the program. So each employer means right now one employee. So looking back on this last year, modest numbers, 6 total participants, and this is April now, so we're 4 current participants. The folks who exited the program, 1 bought a house, and so they no longer needed rental subsidies. And then 1 moved out of the area to be closer to family out of state. We really saw a pretty good variety in what kind of businesses participated in this. Many of them were in the tourism-focused industries, but not all of them. I'd kind of prefer to not say specifically who these employers are unless anyone's tuned in and listening, just because they didn't kind of ask to be identified here. But as I'll get to in another slide, I did engage them in the last month to ask if they had feedback and invited them to show up tonight to speak if they want to. The total funds that we spent on this program in 2025 was about $16,000. So that's pretty modest numbers. That $16,000 was leveraged because the way this program works is that the city pays 50% of the subsidy and the employer pays the other 50%. So that $16,000 was leveraged. The average monthly subsidy that we paid, so that's half of what gets paid to the employee, was $386. The average cost burden of participants before they enrolled in this program was 40%. So they were paying on average 40% of their monthly gross income on housing costs. And of course, after they enrolled in this program, that went down to 30% because that's what this program does. The average AMI or income of the sponsored employees was 91% of the median income. And a word about the numbers. I was kind of reluctant to advertise this program as April approached, just knowing that this is a pilot program and it could end. So I didn't really feel the need to try to press for numbers. If you all do want to make this permanent program, this program permanent, or to extend it, the pilot, I think it'll be a lot easier to get more people involved. Some of the feedback that I received from employers were that it may be worthwhile to offer smaller subsidies, but spread them around to more people. The program is helpful, but they were uncertain if the program alone is the reason for their employee retention. Anything that helps keep people in Glenwood is a win. Also, it was useful in retaining their employee and is a good use of funds. However, the high cost of living is still a challenge for long-term employee retention. So the staff recommendation, which is also the WHFAB recommendation, is to approve the employer-based rental assistance program as a permanent program. And I did update the budget for WHFAB that was in your packet. So this is where we are right now. We're projected to have more than enough money to cover this program. You might notice in your packet, might have raised an eyebrow that we budgeted $250,000 for this program in 2026. That is just from the adopted budget. So I do not think we can scale it up to $250,000, at least in this year. And if we did, we'd probably be looking at, doing something like contracting out some of the administrative work for this, because that would be 50-something people, and that would be a big jump. But even with that $250,000 budgeted, we're still looking at having a budget at the end of the year of about $969,000. And that is all I have for y'all. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you.
I should also mention that we have the chair of WH5 here tonight. He's been waiting patiently too. Might want to speak to y'all.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Watkins. Any questions to staff at this point from council? Councilor Smith.
Thank you. And indeed, thank you, Matt, for sticking around. Maybe we may take advantage of having a representative from the board. Watkins, one of the basics that you described in the program guidelines is a one-year contract with each employer. Is that because this was only a one-year pilot, or if this is made more permanent, could that contract period be extended?
The intent, I'm not actually sure. I wasn't too involved in the creation of this program, just tangentially. But I do think it is a good thing to have contracts of a certain term and not just indefinite, because even though what we're doing here is creating some stability so people can stay in their jobs, we know that people do change jobs. And, so I think that kind of revisiting these things periodically with a term is not a bad thing.
Part of why, and that probably does make sense, it just maybe not necessarily 1 year. Maybe it's coincidence that it was with the 1-year pilot program, but we heard in the work session earlier with the advisory board that having this program declared permanent may make it more appealing to more employers because it feels less ephemeral. And that contract term may or may not help with that. So it's worth considering that, I'd suggest. You mentioned the budget amount compared to how much was actually spent in this first year. Why so little? Why so few participants? What kept more people from stepping up?
Well, I think part of the discrepancy is also just that when we started this program, we didn't know what the demand was going to be. We didn't know how many people were going to enroll. So we wanted to make sure that we had enough to go around. And so we picked a number, 125,000. Matt, maybe you have more insight into how we picked that. And, you know, we probably could get a lot more participation, and we hope to in the future. But, you know, some of our guidelines are limit who can enroll in this. And that's intentional too. You have to have worked for your employer for at least a year before you're eligible. You know, not all employers are willing to, you know, kind of partner up and be a partner the way this program is imagined, because they're contributing half of this stipend also.
Thank you. What?
I got a little bit of feedback about how many people we had. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Why'd you come up, Matt? State your name, please, for the record.
Yeah, Matt Spidell. I'm a city resident and a business resident here.
Thank you.
The reason why I don't think we had a huge pilot group is, you know, we were going through a change with our housing director, Kevin. We got a number of businesses. I think we did the lotto, him and I did the lotto, like 11 businesses just to start us out. Not all of them stayed in the program. And then it got to the point where we're like, do we really want to try to go solicit more and put more work now on Watkins, who's just getting into his role? So that's why we didn't really maximize that. But I think we got a good cross section of feedback. So.
Thank you. Many people here and many people around town can cite examples of employers doing this on their own. Some of the big honking employers definitely do it, but even small individual businesses will buy and then buy residences and rent them back to their employees. Some of this has been going on for a really long time. Why do we need a government program in addition to that private initiative?
This helps out smaller businesses, I think. Smaller businesses that may not have the same means to go out and buy real estate, which is really expensive. And it's just another tool in our arsenal. You know, it signals to the community and the businesses that we have here that we're willing to be a partner, city's willing to be a partner. And so we can leverage our money that way and leverage their money also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Smolinski, please.
Is there any limit to how long an employee can participate in this program? Like,
no, there's not.
So if you get a valued employee that works for you full-time for 7 years, you can kind of help them, stuff like, okay, cool. And then, do you have, like, if we vote today to continue the program, what would be the plan to kind of court better participation and get more businesses on board with this?
Got a couple leads for businesses that I think might be interested, so I'll be following up on those. And then I think it's just, you know, boots on the pavement, walking around, spreading the word.
Thank you.
Councilor Schachter.
And this could be for Carl as well. If we approve that this become a permanent program, ambitious budget or not, whether you hit that number is less important. I think that you have the program, have the number. If during this process, you, the commission, Watkins, hey, you know, we need to tweak this. We need to change some of the terms. We need to maybe extend the program. Maybe we have to bump up the amount or change AMI. Do we have to approve all those internal programmatic changes, or in our motion, are we, if we approve, are we giving approval that, yeah, they will pursue the rental program within their proposed budget and do their best to make it work?
Probably a little bit in between on that. I think that there are some core pieces of this that council would always want to approve. I think the things that Watkins is presenting as far as AMIs and things like that, I think that probably would come back to you guys. I think, you know, how do we do advertising? How do we chase businesses? How do we increase the numbers? That kind of thing. I think that's, you know, probably more just programmatic work for the staff to do. But I think those core pieces of the program would always come back to you for tweaking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council Townsley.
Most everything I've got is comments, but I do have one question, and it could go to you or Matt, either one. But I'm looking at this as a business subsidy more than as helping a person. When I've got one person that was really needed to be helped, but then went out and bought a house. I kind of question that. A couple other people didn't use it. We only put 16,000 out. I guess my question is why do we need to subsidize businesses if an employer's out there and this amounts to $2 an hour? So we're subsidizing a business. They take one employee. Are the businesses that tight that they can't pay their employee an extra $2 an hour? I mean, you've talked to the people, so.
For the new council members, again, Matt Spidell. So you guys didn't know where this came from. This came from me having amazing retention at my Jimmy John's, and I was funding about a third of 6 of my current staff members, mostly managers or right below managers. And I also do anniversaries. And I was like, man, so I started seeing that this really working for me. And then I thought, wow, if we have this 2C fund, and I'm not looking to benefit from this, I could recuse myself to the end. But I was thinking, well, this money, if this could be a broader program, one, we could have a lot more retention throughout the entire community. And to me, retention is everything when it comes to quality of service. So why is it important to subsidize it when you could just pay more money? I work with my employees to say, hey, I'm paying you about as much as I can pay you, but if you can commit to me at this level of management or what have you, I can help you out with your rental. And I also don't want to shut my business down when the canyons either side close, which is quite often. It can be quite often. And so I'm always looking at as a business owner, I want to be in business. I want to be open. So that was my selfish reason to do a lot of this rental and have Glenwood people and work and live in the same place. So I think it's a great program from a lot of aspects. It keeps people, if it encourages other businesses to have people living in Glenwood and working in Glenwood, we can keep more cars off. We can keep businesses open. I think the last time that South Canyon closed, it's been a while now, but I heard like you couldn't go to Alpine Bank and you couldn't get a change order that day. Starbucks wasn't open. So this is like my attempt to have a program that is not just a giveaway. It's a partnership like Watkins mentioned. It's a 50-50 match. But to me, it's a winning program that helps everyone succeed, including retention and having open businesses. And a lot of the people that we do count on, and we talked about it earlier, whether it be a nurse or, you need those people here. And the more we can have those key people and those key businesses open, the better off we all are.
Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski, please. Crap.
Oh, I thought, sorry, I got distracted. One of the things in the staff report was mentioned about the kind of sticky wicket with the taxes. Is there a way that, like, how does that be addressed? Because that seems like kind of a big negative.
Yes, the double taxation. We are pursuing some options that I don't think we can talk about yet because they're not real. In the work session, we talked about the Impact Development Fund as a group that we might work with to help administer our stuff. And we tried to see if they could help us with this problem. They couldn't, but we have some other ideas. So, that's something that we're trying to figure out. I don't think those are big numbers that were, that are causing the inefficiency, but it's kind of like an irritant, right?
Yeah.
Matt, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I knew this might come up, and we've gotten in the weeds on this. I just don't think it's worth getting into the weeds. I ran one of my managers, I just cut a check to say, okay, I got $500 in from the city. What are those taxes? And it's like $40 of Medicare and Social Security tax. It wasn't a lot of money. But I'm getting a $4,600 value of the year of having rental assistance, but I'm not paying that much in tax. So it seems like one of those things you could get caught up and worry about.
Right.
And I think we can come up with solutions, maybe a trust down the road. But we'd have to talk to people like Carl, like how do we develop a trust and how do we develop a nonprofit to run this money through so it's tax-free? It was a lot of work and a lot of expense. So
Got
for,
it.
for a little bit amount of taxes, and you're paying taxes on free money. So it's not like,
I know.
it's not like that much. So that's all I got on that.
Yeah, so I guess I wasn't struggling so much with like the employee being taxed on like additional compensation, but it was the double tax that I didn't understand. So maybe I'm,
That's coming from like,
that's what I'm
Tourist tax.
trying to figure out.
Yeah, so,
from the hotel to,
well, it's taxed when we contribute it to the employer, then the employer contributes to them. So that's twice.
Got it. So the employer is paying taxes and then the employee is paying taxes.
I think it's going to be covered by the employer in both those cases. So that's why it's a little bit of an irritant to them, but that's,
Got it.
and again, this is a little bit outside my wheelhouse. I think it's called a taxable event. Is that right, Carl?
yeah.
And so,
And the double tax is only for the employer. It's only Medicare and Social Security.
Got it. Okay.
There's-
That's what I was trying to understand.
federal
So,
tax.
all right.
Not
Thank
like
you.
air tax.
Got it.
Counselor Small.
Did I understand in the presentation right that you currently had 4 participants total in the program? And that
Currently.
there were 6?
currently, that's right.
So the total subsidy that was paid out was somewhere between $18,000 and $25,000?
No, the total was that $16,000 figure
16.
approximately.
We did have 11.
No, we might have had 11 applicants, but not everyone qualified.
So how does that equate to a $200,000 budget?
Right.
What am I missing?
That was the $250,000. I just copied that from the approved budget. So I don't think that's realistic for us to scale up to, at least for a long time. But I just trying to be consistent with the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, staff? No? Excellent. Thank you, guys, for being here. So, right, anybody from the public like to comment on this item? See none? Move on. Yeah, we got to give them direction of what we want to do, if we want to continue, if we want to make it permanent or extend the pilot. So entertaining a motion to go forward with this, and we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Zelensky, please.
I would like to make a motion that we move the employer-based rental assistance program from a pilot to an ongoing program within the city.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to move forward to make it permanent. And Councilor Schachter?
I'll second the motion.
And a second. Any discussion? Councilor Weimer?
Friendly amendment. I'm trying to be cognizant of Watkins' needs to kind of be able to talk about permanence and stability within the program, but at the same time, I'd like to be able to reevaluate this. Could we give this like a 5-year runway with a 3-year go, no-go decision? Something like that. So that if we do say go, we say go, at that point, it's a go in 3 years. In 3 years, if we say it's a no-go for whatever reason, it could be just too much of a hassle, too much trouble for us to administer versus what benefit, perceived benefit. Watkins then at least at that point has 2 years to sort of wind things down. Not that it may take that much, but at least some grace.
I think he
given.
has something to say to that.
Watkins, if you have anything to say to that.
Yeah. What you're discussing is totally y'all's prerogative, and that's fine if you want to do that. I was just going to offer that we can have, yearly check-ins, yearly, presentations to see how it's going. If that alleviates any of your concerns, that's fine too.
I would also note that you guys will have to approve a budget every year. So there's also, I mean, you have a
Explicit line item?
yeah, I think that it would be.
It is.
Yeah. In the WFAB, in that fund, you will see that item budgeted.
That's where the $250,000 comes from.
Okay.
not to say that from a policy level, you shouldn't have what you described, but just, I was suggesting you get a bite at the apple every year on the budgeting cycle as well.
I just don't want any, I don't want any surprises either, right? Like at the last minute, we tell them it's, no dice or something, but, and again, it's just tossing it out there as an amendment. You guys can play with it or whatever. But like, I don't know that I need to spend time on this every year. It's not that big of a deal. But like in 3 years, maybe we come back and kind of just see where we are and make a decision. That's my barely 2 cents.
Okay. So he did ask for friendly amendment, but, right, oh, yeah.
I'm comfortable with that. The reason I made the motion is that I don't feel like the first year was enough time to fully vet the program. I think that there's value in it. So I'm super comfortable with setting parameters for a reevaluation. So yes, I'm happy to amend my motion to, we continue with the employer-based rental assistance program for a period anticipated to be 5 years with a reevaluation at no less than 3 years. Just 3-year mark. Perfect.
You're gonna amend your second?
Sure.
Excellent. Okay, we now have an amended motion. I hope
Then
everybody's
had the-
clear on
and I
it.
had that. That was first.
And yes, Mayor Pro Tem, please.
So
I'll fix you. Don't worry, I got it.
Okay. So one of the reasons that I wanted to kind of vote to move this forward is, first of all, I think there's value in it, and I don't think we've fully been able to like really fulfill the value of that with it being a pilot and kind of tentative. I can see where a lot of people maybe weren't fully ready to take advantage of that. I like that this shows a partnership between our business community and the city. I can see where you could make the argument that this is a stipend or an augmentation to the businesses, but I think that it's a little bit, we're asking businesses to try and employ people that live within the town to address some of our concerns, and this is a way that we are helping push forth that goal. So we are making an ask and then we're meeting in the middle. So I like the idea of that. And I feel like this shows an investment in retention and the quality of workforce in Glenwood Springs, which is something I don't think we talk about a lot, but turnover is costly, not just to businesses, but I think it's costly to the community. And so, I like the idea of, making a little bit deeper investment in people.
Thank you. Council Townsley.
I guess a couple things, just, I look at this and if I was a private business person and you'd come to me from one of my departments and said, I've got this great idea for a program, and I listened to you and I said, okay, that's great, let's try it. And you came back to me with these results, then I would say, this program's a failure. Let's just cut our piece and go. The work that you guys put into this and coming up with some ideas, I appreciate that because you're trying to come up with some ideas, and that's what you're doing on that board and commission. So I think that's admirable. But when I look at what probably is the cost to run this, whether it's Watkins' time, somebody's time, I mean, it's a 4-page document of everything that you're going to report and check and do all those things. Pretty soon we're hiring somebody else, whether it's a third-party person outside like we talked about in our work session today, or whether we hire somebody else staff-wise on the city, because you can't take this program and that program and this program. It's just, there's a lot of administration to this, a lot of cost. And I really don't see a benefit to it that went through here. To me, it looks like an employer subsidy. You said your average debt to income ratio was 40 of the people in the project. That's 40 is normal for where we live. I mean, people going out and buying houses, they're all over that. They're not the 30% number that we throw around a lot. Is just not a supported number in our community. I've talked to a lot of other people, citizens around here. I've not yet talked to one person, and maybe I should have talked to the 6 business owners or somebody on the board and commission, but I have not talked to one person that thought this was a good idea. They're like, you're kidding me, we're doing what? And so I just, if this is something that had taken off and run and we're getting a lot of people to use it, but I just don't see that it's it was a good stab, it was a good try. At the worst case scenario, I would support maybe doing it for a shorter period of time again, but it's just not used. It's one more thing that, government's getting bigger, government's getting involved. it just doesn't make any sense to me. So for that reason, I would not support this in any form.
Thank you. Councilor Schachter.
Well, I'm willing to support the program. I've seen it since its genesis. I know how much effort Matt's put in. That's not enough reason to support it. But we're not the only ones that do it as well. We've used some, didn't we use a pilot or kind of a overlay from Eagle County? Did you not get help from them or something? Anyway, but my point is, I agree with everything I've heard, but I still want to give it a run and see what happens. And based on the workshop, in addition to Counselor Weimer's motion and Counselor Townsley's reservations, I'm expecting, as we discussed today, a much more detailed impact report every year. That this will be part of it. And it doesn't preclude us from cutting it off sooner, even at your own recommendation. So I'm willing to see it grow. And I hope also along the way, even though you might need our approval, that you guys look at it dynamically. And if you need to tweak it, we need to up this, lower that, expand that, because we think it'll work in line with what the Workforce Housing Fund was designed to do, which this is part of it, that you come to us. So for that reason, I will support it as amended.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky.
I wanted to bring up one other point. We're also asking the businesses to bring up the other 50%. So you're not going to cut somebody's salary and then say, oh, but I'm going to give you a housing stipend. So there is a meet in the middle. This is us helping them offer one more enhancement. Like we keep saying, one more tool in the toolbox is how I see it. And I might be biased because I was a small business owner that struggled with staffing. Over the course of my business, I saw that change over the course of the 15 years. What it was when I started and what it was when I sold it, it was a different landscape. And so I'm probably a little bit more personally connected to those struggles and what it would feel like to have like one more like assist. And so I think I might be a little bit biased and take that with a grain of salt.
Thank you. Councilor Townsley.
I was also a small business owner here in Glenwood. We hired people, we employed them, we paid them enough that they could do their job. You know, they competed with us, with other banks that they could have gone to. It was not retail, so they were getting a little bit higher salary. But again, I never looked at that and said, as part of my business plan as being a business owner here, I need the city to participate in paying my people. So I just respectfully disagree with you.
That's completely.
Yeah, okay, great. Any other discussion? See none. All I have to say is this is a great tool for the toolbox. I kind of wish it was more successful. The 6 is great, but 18 be better. So whatever we need to do to push this forward, I'm willing to support the money. The 2C money is there for that kind of thing. And we owe it to some of our businesses to do this if we want to stay open. The point you made, Matt, when the roads closed, you couldn't even go to the hospital at that point. You couldn't even get your blood pressure taken because we had nobody staffed there at that point. If this helps us to avoid that, I will fund this any day. So with that, I will call for the question.
No, Counselor Townsley. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski. Yes, Mayor Dame. Yes, Counselor Weimer. No, Counselor Schmal. Yes, Counselor Smith. Yes, Smith. Yes, Counselor Schachter. It passes 5-2.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you too for being here. Watkins, Matt, thank you for what you do in the commission. I think this concludes our discussion and our actions for tonight. And we'll move into council comments and we'll start with Counselor Smith.
Thank you. I think the most immediately previous meeting, at a previous meeting, I suggested that we be more deliberate about some sort of appreciation effort for members of boards and commissions as they finish their service. To that end, I have drafted a letter, and it might become a standard format or could be a draft to be enhanced by. I'd like to pass that around for your consideration, and maybe that'll keep the conversation going.
Did you also submit this to Steve Boyd?
I'm going to.
Okay, or Tim at this point, sorry, Tim, didn't mean.
There's enough in that pile for everybody, so I'll pick up the extras and get them scattered around. Thank you. Occasionally we'll have, in addition to the very helpful and typically very extensive meeting packet materials, we sometimes have graphics as well as memos. Then sometimes we'll come to a meeting and there's a new slideshow that proves very helpful to the presentation. And often we'll have a council member say, can we get a copy of that? And sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. So if we could find a way to be a little more systematic about getting those last minute slideshows forward onto us, it would be very helpful. 2 examples, at our March 5th meeting, we had a very helpful visual slideshow update on construction projects. And at the March 19th meeting, we had a very helpful after the packet slideshow on housing data. It'd be nice to get those 2 in particular, and then somehow we can follow up on those last minutes. And then finally, I noticed this week that the state legislature passed and the governor signed some housing legislation, including one that had gotten our attention when it was first introduced. That, if I'm reading it right, basically exempts certain entities who want to do housing development from our planning code and review.
Yeah.
Significance for this, for the cities, what's the impact?
That you could have housing projects without public review, or parking and very minimal height restrictions. So we're going to be coming back to you with, as a firm, we're building out some legislation to try to address the worst impacts of this. I think the biggest problem with the SAVE Act, along with not just generally being well thought out and not, or the Home Act, sorry, not the SAVE Act, get them confused. The Home Act is that it's unclear what entities will qualify. It is clear to a lot of us in mountain communities that the entities that qualify will be for-profit developers that have nonprofit arms. Almost all of them do for a variety of reasons. And that there is no, by statute, there is no requirement for affordability in the bill. And so it has kind of taken off the limitations. There's no local review really, and there's no requirement for true affordability. And through CAST, we argued for those provisions through both the House and the Senate on this bill. And so now, as is often the case at the local level, we're going to have to try to work around the situation. So bottom line is you're probably going to be seeing some draft legislation in the next probably month or 6 weeks for you to consider to update the code on the affordability side, because I think that's the place where we have the most leverage underneath the new legislation.
Thank you. I'm glad we'll be seeing that again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Schachter. Councilor Weimer. Councilor Townsend. Councilor Small. Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky.
RFOB has put out their 2026 list of projects. There's an opportunity for people to volunteer. There's a great laundry list, and then there's several that are kind of right in our neck of the woods. There's a few evening and weekend work sessions at Babish Gulch, Linwood Cemetery. There might be a Wolfson. So there's some good ways that you can contribute to our outdoor spaces, shared public spaces, and do a little give back. And I think that's about it. Should I
Sure.
announce? Oh, do you have anything?
Mm-mm. You got something?
First,
No, we're not there yet. There's
that's what
more.
I said.
No, there's more. Okay, no, just, I'll let you know. Okay, I got nothing. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. All right, report, city manager. Don't, it's just, I got it. Yeah, that's you.
It's been a pleasure and honor to serve as your interim manager.
Thanks for being here. City attorney.
I don't think I can top that.
No.
I think, maybe some of us are wondering if we're gonna have an executive session on some updates.
We are. Sorry, it got kicked. Steve asked that we kick it to the next meeting because he was going to be gone, as was Matt, and they're both integral to that discussion on both Mitchell Cooper and the lawsuit regarding the access.
Access route.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did file an answer in that case today, pretty standard stuff. But as far as more talking legal theory and things like that, we just felt like we'd kick it down the road, so those two guys could be here to have that conversation with you.
Okay, thank you. Any correspondence?
Nope.
Not tonight. Excellent. Social event announcement, Mayor Pro Tem.
I think we might head to tech to you again.
All right, excellent. Thank you. And I'm entertaining a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion, a second, and a second. We got a vote. Sorry, call for the question. To adjourn. Motion carried.
It passes 7-0.